my computer was not connecting to the studio. So here we are, and we are going to be talking about dating to mate and how important connection is. Obviously, it's really important because if we didn't get connected, I would not be able to speak to you. And so, for all the people who are loyal and waited in the waiting room, thank you so much. This is a call-in show, everyone. And that number is 323-524-2599. And my name is Dr. Judy Rosenberg, Psychological Healing Center. I'm a clinical psychologist. And by all means, if you're wanting to speak to me or one of the team members, just call and they'll set you up for either a consultation or phone call or phone consultation or whatever it takes to connect to you. So today we're going to be talking about probably the most meaningful connection you can make in your life, which is selecting a partner, selecting a mate, and why it is important to date two mates. So I'm going to introduce in a little bit the mind map and how this is relevant. And we're talking about making meaningful connections. It's super easy to, for example, go online and check off a bunch of people that you're interested in and sort of stay in the non-committal zone and have a taste at scrolling around and finding a whole bunch of people, and how fun when somebody likes you back and sends you a rose or a compliment. But that's not exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a meaningful connection. So let me get into my philosophy, which may be very different than your philosophy. I understand that, and why it is important to date to mate. I am not fond of casual dating, and simply put, I have experienced it myself. It's meaningless. It doesn't grow. It doesn't create synergy. Also, because people are so casual these days, and as you know, people like to just go in and out of relationships like they change underwear. We're not ending up with deep, meaningful connections, which is why it is so important to choose people who are in a dating pool who are only interested in a meaningful, committed relationship. So let's go through the mind map and then I'll boil down why it is so important to have that. I'm going to start with panel number one, which are wounds of childhood. So the light in the background is the light of you. It's your meaningfulness. It's your true, authentic self that's been shadowed over by wounds of childhood. And what are these wounds? Well, specifically, they're wounds of verbal abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect, control smothering, physical abuse, narcissistic parents who use and enlist you into their agenda and basically use you to fulfill their hole in the soul, as I like to call it, their own deficits that they need filled. And this is actually the opposite of a meaningful relationship. So I'm going to go back to attachment theory and why this is so important. So attachment theory, Dr. John Bowlby came up with attachment theory, which says that it is important in the first few years of life to have a healthy and dependent attachment on your primary caregiver or givers. Usually the caregiver is mom. Secondary caregiver is the secondary figure in the child's life, and why it is so important to attach. And the reason things go awry when the attachment doesn't go well is because when you do not have healthy attachment, you don't have the building blocks or the foundation for secure attachment, which is so necessary for attachment to a healthy relationship partner who is committed to you and you are committed to, and will not recapitulate old patterns of unhealthy attachments like avoidant attachment or anxious and clingy attachment or 𝗬𝗓𝗏𝗕𝗔𝗔𝗔 kind of attachments that are very confusing. So why we are so much interested as psychologists, why I'm so interested in attachment theory is it really is the blueprint for a healthy psyche. It's the blueprint for a healthy me. And the blueprint for a healthy me, as I explained in my last YouTube episode, is what you need to form a healthy we. So if you have a healthy me and another healthy me, you have the possibility for a healthy we. And if you do not have those elements, then you're going to have all kinds of unhealthy dynamics like clinging behavior, avoidant behavior, narcissistic behavior where you are taking, people-pleasing behavior, which usually goes with clingy behavior. And so it becomes not really a meaningful attachment. It becomes an attachment that is rooted in childhood wounds and rooted in some sort of an expression, if you will, of a system gone wrong. And so if you haven't gotten the first few stages correctly in your developmental process, then likely you're going to be doing what I call the 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which I'll carry on with my mind map. So if you are hurt at the causal level, you will have reactions from the amygdala, which is the emotional preverbal brain. And if you could put the mind map up there, I'd really appreciate it. So you could see wounds create reactions, and then these reactions create horrible encodings like I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not important, I'm not powerful, and all kinds of things that then set the blueprint for anti-relationship, or for sure relationships that will trigger within the pair. So these core beliefs get reactivated in committed relationships. And so if you are going to be dating, make sure that you get all of your psychopathology out of the way. So step number one to dating to mate is to be the healthy me. And so if you then are held up with these horrible core beliefs and have not processed your emotions, you're going to end up in what I call 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 land, which is panel number 456. And you can see that up on the mind map, bunch of chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, if you would. Thank you very much. There's the chaos. That's where the bonds just, they do not hold together. And then the defenses come into play. People become avoidant, people defend by shutting down, people defend by filling their hole in the soul with drugs, sex, rock and roll, porn, alcohol, drugs, whatever that substance is or habit is. And then that does not hold up very well. So then we come to a big breakdown. And the breakdown is usually something that happens as a result of trying to hold it together. And it's impossible to hold a healthy psyche. It's impossible to hold a system together if the psyche is not healthy, if you're looking at a system gone wrong. The blueprint is tainted. It is riddled with what I call psychoviruses. These are these viruses that get in your head as core beliefs and cause chaos, defenses, and ultimate breakdowns. Breakdowns like divorce, breakdowns like somatic breakdowns, where your body doesn't function anymore, where you cannot hold even your physicality together because there's so much going on mentally that you have to balance yourself with things that are not necessarily going to sustain you and going to break you down even further. So why is it so important once you've done the work to date to mate? Simple answer. Anybody want to give a guess in the chat room? Why is it so important, based on everything that I've said here, to date to mate? Any guesses here? Anybody in the chat room want to hazard a guess? Any comments? Anybody want to just throw in a comment there? Any comments in the chat room?
Let's see. Any comments? We have no comments yet. Just some chitter chatter.
Okay, how about Collins? Why don't you call in and we could discuss why is it so important to date to mate? Why to mate? Why to close the deal? Why to have a committed relationship? Why? Why can't we just mess around and keep having multiple casual relationships at different time intervals or even at the same time? Why does that usually not work out?
Actually, we do have a question here.
Yes.
How does emotional intelligence play a role in creating and maintaining meaningful connection in dating?
Oh, huge. Great question. How does emotional intelligence? Okay, so this is the most emotionally intelligent question that I've asked today. If you can answer it, you're emotionally intelligent. So why is it important to date to mate? Why? Nobody wants to chime in on this one, huh? Well, okay. That's why you're listening to the show, is you want to understand why is it important to date to mate? Well, I'll go back to attachment theory and then I'll elaborate on many reasons why it's important to date to mate. The first reason is because we cannot settle down. We cannot settle in. We cannot find our peace and our calm unless we are secure. Okay, does that make sense? I liken it to real estate. I love real estate, love buying homes, flipping homes. I used to do a lot of that back in the day. And sometimes I get so excited about the house that I made an offer on, I want to send the painters in and start picking up the old nasty flooring and hauling away the debris. But wouldn't that be kind of stupid of me if I put all this money and time and investment in a house that is only in escrow? Okay, so what does that mean to be in escrow? Escrow means the deal is not closed. It's not secure. So if I start cleaning up the debris and start painting the house and removing the carpeting and putting all this energy into it, and it does not pass escrow inspections and it falls out of escrow, what just happened? Any guess on that? Well, I could tell you what just happened is lucky seller. Lucky seller, I just invested in his or her property, and now that property is better off, time, my money, and so on. And now that property can go back on the market, improved, and the seller can now maybe even sell it for a higher price. So why am I using this metaphor? Because it's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people where you invest in an individual. Haven't you ever heard of the girlfriend who invests in her boyfriend and helps him through medical school or law school and lends him money, or is beside him and she's his best friend, and or vice versa, and everything's going smoothly, and then the other person graduates from school and turns to their significant other and says, you know, honey, thank you so much for your help, but I realize that I need some time. to be single now. We've been together now for 5-6 years. I've never experienced other people. I've met a lot of people in school, and I know that I can't settle down unless I've lived my life. Well, who's going to be hurting here? Specifically the who's been used. And this is an example of quite narcissistic behavior where you're using somebody's energy, support, money, goodwill. They've invested their heart in you, for example, and now you're pulling out. And what do you have? You've got an improved version of the other person, and you're a wreck. You're broke, you're in tears, you're bonded to somebody who's not bonded to you. You've got to now go to therapy and support groups and go online and talk about recovering from narcissistic abuse. So we've got a mess here. Okay, now I'm going to back up and say marriage is certainly no guarantee at all for permanency, which I'll get to, how to select that mate. But certainly if you're in a loose, uncommitted relationship, you're probably going to be headed for chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. Okay, so the first answer to that question is security. And are there any questions in the chat room? And then I could talk about, what was that question about emotional intelligence? Isn't that important to a relationship? Was that the question?
The question was, how does emotional intelligence play a role in creating and maintaining meaningful connections in dating?
Okay, so how does emotional intelligence, first of all, I regard people who do the work of really figuring out their own mental health and unhealth, people who are invested in their emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence means that you're using all parts of your brain. You're using your common sense, you're applying value, screening processes to the people that you allow into your life. You're not led by your emotions only. You are also led by practical things like, do you share the same values? Do you share the same timing? Do you share a similar lifestyle? Do you have goals that support each other's evolution to climb the ladder of psycho-spiritual success, as I like to refer to it? So this is having emotional intelligence. I think that emotionally intelligent people do not like to waste their time. They mean business, and a date might even not be as fun as a casual date because it might include some heavy questions and really delving into matching values and matching lifestyle and matching goals and so on. So emotionally intelligent people are not led by their feelings. Oh my God, she's so beautiful. He's so hot. Oh yeah, wow, he drives a great car. He must be rich. Wow, she went to school, so she must be extremely intelligent and a fantastic person. So we've got to be careful because part of emotional intelligence means not projecting qualities on another person that they have not shown to exemplify. So you can't just project on somebody just because they went to school and got a good education that they're wonderful people. One might be apples, the other oranges. They're not the same thing. You can't project your needs of wanting family and commitment on another person and assume that they want that as well. You're better off asking. You don't have to come at them like a speeding train of questions and bullets of questions, but somewhere in the conversation, you want to know that you're not wasting your time and that you have a potential here. So that would be examples of emotionally intelligent ways to approach dating. I had somebody tell me about a date that they went on the other day, and the date was with a very nice gentleman, and all he talked about was golf, 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 golf. And then the person turned to the golfer and said, well, are you only wanting to date people who play golf? He goes, yeah, maybe. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because this was not just golf on Sunday, but this was like golf after work and then hours of golf on the weekends. And he worked and then golfed on the weekend. And where was going to be the time for the relationship? It seemed like it was just going to be a little sliver of the pie. So here's an example of two people who were not emotionally intelligent. The woman should have asked the man some more deal breaker type of questions, but she decided to just go on the date and then ask them in person. Okay, fine. The man should have said specifically, hey, are you really into golf? Because I'm really into golf. And if you're not, you might be bored on the weekends. Or if you're into your thing, then we might be able to make a deal and coordinate it so that you're doing your thing while I'm doing my golfing. So the conversation got there, but it got there after hours of planning and going to the restaurant and sitting there and looking hopeful and trying to figure out if there was something here to be negotiated. And turns out that there really wasn't, because it just didn't make sense for somebody to sign up for a life of golf if they're just not into golf. And besides the point that the person didn't ask too many questions about her. So here is a red flag for vetting people. If they're not asking about you and delving into who you are and what you are and taking an interest in who you are being and what you're bringing to the table, chances are that they're just looking for more of a one-way street of, well, what can you do for me? So what? What am I going to do for you? Cook and clean and be ready for you to be romantic after your golf games? Not a smart idea. Of course, that's just an example, but I hope that you're getting the essence of what I'm saying, is that you don't want to date casually because it takes so much time, energy, emotion, money, getting your hair done, your nails done, or if you're a guy, get going and getting ready and planning the date, paying for the date. What a waste of energy if this is going to go nowhere. So, how do you avoid dating that is not going to be secure attachment, a growth partner, something significant, something nourishing, something that evolves you and the other up the ladder of psycho-spiritual success. So let's go to panel number 7 for a minute, and let's talk about panel number 7 and what that means. So here we've got a healthy me, which is represented by, let's say, the blue orb, and the healthy other me, which is represented by the yellow orb, and there is light in the center. And what is that light? That light represents synergy. It represents my favorite way of having a relationship to another human being, whether it's a romantic one or business associate or friendship or whoever that person is. If both people going into the relationship are not somewhat healthy and haven't figured out their issues and are not carrying a bunch of childhood wounds and reactions and encodings into the relationship, then they've done some kind of work, or at least have thought long and hard about it. If you're lucky enough to meet somebody that's synergistic, then you're going to experience something that many people don't even know the definition of: synergy. 1 + 1 is greater than 2. what is synergy? You're in a secure attachment. The system is not leaking out. Nobody is having an affair with somebody else. Nobody is lending money to other people without the other person's permission, if that's your arrangement. No one is going out of the system. The system is properly being fed by commitment, by more than just commitment, but actions, really putting into the relationship, investing into the relationship. And when you have two people who are investing in the relationship, just like investing in real estate or anything worth investing in, your assets are going to grow. And as they grow, both of you are going to be the beneficiary. And isn't that really, really a beautiful thing? So let's go with the opposite of dating just to date, casual dating, no commitment, drop anybody at any time. What does that do to the psyche? Well, that's part of the reason I'm in business, is because all these people come to my office and they're crying that their boyfriends have left them and they thought they were in a committed thing and they told their family all about the commitment and they fantasized about the house and the white picket fence and the kids and their future, except that it wasn't really thoroughly agreed upon. It was out there, yeah, someday, sometime. I hear lines like, yeah, I'm committed to be committed. I don't know what that one means. Or, yeah, sometime in the future. And then the person stretches and stretches and stretches their emotions so that they can bear with it while this nebulous future comes along. And then what do they have at the end of the rainbow? I'm being a little facetious here. Sometimes nothing. Changed my mind, didn't work out after all. We tried. Goodbye, good luck. You're not the one for me. Well, painful, isn't it? Painful. And now the person has to go through the withdrawal pains of letting go of their love. They have to go through the grief of it, the anger, and so on. And so this is what non-commitment oftentimes looks like, unfortunately. A lot of assumptions, a lot of projections onto the other person, a lot of immature and hopeful beliefs that things will turn out without any reason to believe otherwise. And so what ends up happening is that the person that's not invested takes the relationship casually, doesn't put a lot of energy into it. And we now know that when people don't put energy into a relationship, they don't find it meaningful. They don't try to protect it and nurture it. And so the relationship is going to die anyway. So let's go back to a very, very important piece of the mind map, which I talk about in panel 1 in my book. You could read about it. Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. And you can get a PDF copy just by asking. You can get an actual copy by purchasing it on Amazon.com. And in the book, I talk about consciousness being causal. So consciousness is our intentions. Let's keep it simple. We go into a relationship. The consciousness is our intentions. I intend to be with you permanently. Intentions are a great start. If your intentions are there, then you have to do meaningful behaviors, meaningful gestures to show your intentions. So usually in a committed relationship, when you're dating to mate, there is a timeline, at least for many people there is, because women only have a certain period of time where they're fertile, even though they could freeze their eggs and so on. So we can extend that time. But generally, there's a timeline, And if the person isn't in sync with the timeline, it's gonna cause chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. It's always the same answer. And so when you don't invest in a relationship and your consciousness is that you're not sure, nebulous consciousness, maybe, maybe not, horrible thing to rest a relationship upon. But back to dating to mate, if you have the intention of moving forward with the person, investing in the person, growing with the person, then you want to, as the song says, put a ring on it, which means put a commitment to it, which means it could be a legal commitment, it could be a spiritual commitment where you commit in front of your priest or your rabbi or whoever is tying the knot for you. So it's a public commitment and it has public repercussions. So this is not just, you see, it's like you throw the commitment as a pebble into the pond and it reverberates. So this will extend to commitment in the mind of your parents, your friends, your siblings, other members of the family and community. And so this concentric circle grows larger and larger. So it's no longer about you. So your lack of commitment leaves you in no man's land because your friends and family, like, I don't know what they're doing, but they've been together for a long time. Yep, he got her one of those cubic zirconium rings, and he's probably in, well, should I not? Just kind of like walking the fine line, and maybe as time goes on, it'll sort of, end up in some kind of a marriage just because they're too tired to go out there and hunt for somebody else, who knows? But that's not a very good feeling when a person committing to a relationship isn't honoring this commitment with the best of the best. That's why we have diamonds and fine jewelry. As an example, I'm not saying that you should necessarily do it that way, but I think it's just a symbol of seriousness. A diamond is not a cubic zirconium. A diamond is the real thing. It's also a metaphor for a beautiful, brilliant stone that has been formed under pressure. And so the pressure is, it withstood the pressure of time, the pressure of asking the right questions, delving into the right values, and so on. And so with that pressure, hopefully will emerge a brilliant, committed individual who's ready to merge with a brilliant, in the sense of brilliant, brilliant commitment-minded individual that will then synergize, and then you can start building. Again, you cannot build a house and add to it if it's in escrow. You can't build a relationship that is pie in the sky, maybe. And if you do, I wish you luck, because usually these things are not going to work out. Sometimes they do, and I'm not right all of the time. However, I have enough emotional EQ at this point, I hope, 30 years of being a psychologist and a mental health professional and living life, that people need to nail things down. People need to declare publicly who they are and what they are. People need to appear as at one in some shape or form. That's why they live in one house usually, unless you are choosing to live in separate houses, which I don't know. Maybe it works for some people. Usually it's not the best setup for a close, intimate marriage. When you're at one, you can function strongly. You can be caretaker to your children. You can function to pool your resources so that children get the best of the best. When you're at one, you have a strong foundation and a trickle down of love and affection to the next generation. You have a support system for aging parents if they need it. You have a support system to the community if they are needing any kind of support and foundational help with building projects and so on, and giving back to the community, so that you are forming an interconnected web just by the fact that you have declared yourselves to be in a committed relationship. And then out of that is born a lot of solidity. This up in the air kind of thing doesn't really lend for this solidity, and doesn't carry with it the magnitude of seriousness that a committed marriage does. So now, are there any questions from the audience or any call-ins of why it is so important to date to mate? Any questions?
So there are people that are kind of, talking about their own, like one says, easy for codependents to pick narcissistic mates, unfortunately. So,
Yes.
which I'm sure you're probably going to agree with on that. But there is a question on effective communication, and what can you give, like, strategies, or because even in my relationship, there's always going to be some type of conflict. But how do you deal with that in advance? How do you kind of prepare yourself for conflicts? Because they're always going to happen, and sometimes very unexpectedly.
Okay, so a couple of things that come to mind. Number one, the peaceful healing dialogue, which is the dialogue that I created, where you can be transparent. So you can get the book. Just get the book. It's in
Right.
there. Okay, Be the Cause: Healing Human Disconnect. Peaceful healing dialogue. Let me pull it up. I know I have a copy of it. Keep it around. Oh yes, here it is. There it is, all on one sheet of paper. It's in the book. Okay. So here, I'll read it to you guys.
Please.
Number one, you've got to respect each other. There's got to be a respect. You have to agree to disagree sometimes. It's called respect. You're not going to agree on everything. Be truthful, even if it hurts. Self-reflect, own your own stuff. This is a very, very important part of the mind map system. If you can't own your own stuff, you're going to be blaming and shaming and finger pointing, and you're not going to grow, because it's always going to be their fault. So self-reflection is a way to dial down the anger, to dial down the accusations, and just be responsible for your contribution to the chaos. Something like, look, in thinking about it, I could see how I wasn't exactly clear in my conversation. I could see how that could have been misinterpreted. Is that what happened? So that goes back to feedback. You want honest, rigorous feedback. So when you're involved in a feedback loop, then you're not going to drop the ball. You're not going to make assumptions. You're not going to think something that isn't true. Another aspect of this is be solution oriented. Yeah, you want to solve the problem by being solution oriented, not by being passive and sweeping it under the rug, not by being aggressive and being authoritarian. That's not the way to go. You want to be solution oriented. Very important, stay interconnected. So what does that mean? That you value the we more than the individual, I'm right and I'm righter. So you value the relationship. And within that interconnectedness, you go back to working harder to clarify things, to find solutions, to give each other feedback, and address the issues quickly. Do not let them build up. Not a smart idea to sit on things, because it could lead to aggressiveness. It can lead to passive aggressiveness. It can lead to all kinds of acting out. So better that you say it than leave it sitting in your psyche, because it's not going to stay there. Here's another one, extend a bridge. People screw up all the time. So why don't you make it easier for your partner to come back to you? And the route back is just all they have to do really is own their own stuff and show you that they've learned something. It's not just an apology. I'm not a big fan of sorry. Okay, little kids say, my grandson, grandma, sorry. They don't mean it. They haven't learned anything. They just want a pass card. So sorry is not a great way to bridge the gap. Better self-reflect, tell them what you've learned, tell them what's going to be different once you get back on track again. Being ethical, transparent, vulnerable, reshuffling the deck, updating the relationship files. These are just great ways to make sure that you stay on track and that you have emotional intelligence. Also, one thing that I wanted to add here is to have a way to say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. You don't have to be that people pleaser. Sometimes you need to say no. When you say no to something that hurts the other person, you also want to maybe give them a good reason why it's not good for you, why it's not good for the relationship, and then offer them a yes. Offer them another thing that they can have if this one is a hard no. What else can I say yes to? Which leads me to something that I didn't put on here, but I believe that in a relationship, you should say yes a lot to your partner. Unless it becomes abusive and bossy and you feel like you're being made to be a servant. In general, yes. Hey, can I have a hug? Yeah, sure. Do you mind making me a cup of tea? Sure. But you got to be careful with it because you don't want it to go lopsided. Because once it goes lopsided, then you're looking at somebody who is dealing out orders and the people pleaser who is trying to gain brownie points by pleasing, and that's not a healthy dynamics. Okay, so I forgot the question because I got so into this peaceful healing dialogue, but what was the original question, please? Make sure I got it.
All right, let me find it here again.
Thank you. Yeah, I just went on and on.
Oh,
and
it's
on.
so how do you strategize, or how do you try to set the boundaries before conflict even happens? How do you try to prevent it, and if it does happen, how do you guys prepare for it?
Okay, so you agree to talk to each other using the peaceful healing dialogue. So I love the prevention idea. So rather than just shoot from the hip, you structure the dialogue, and it starts with asking for permission. Hey, Tony, is this a good time to talk? Can I talk to you about what happened the other day? And if you say, no, I'm too stressed, I have to respect that and say, all right, let me know when is a good time, and we can get into it then. And then if you finally say, yeah, this is a good time, I will open by saying, hey, Tony, remember the other day when I asked you to take the garbage out and you told me that you would, and then you wouldn't, and you'd say, hopefully you'd say, oh my God, I forgot all about it. Or you'd say, yeah, what about it? And I said, well, it really made me feel like you're not doing your share as a partner. And then we can get into all of these aspects. Okay. But I think people need a better blueprint. One of the log lines of my book it's actually the log line in the book: be the cause of better outcomes for your life. And how do you do that? By setting yourself up for success, by having a dialogue that is at fingertip access. Some of my patients actually photograph this into their, they have it as a, I don't know, screensaver sometimes. They just take a photograph of that. It's in their little picture file. And then if they're in a meeting or they need to talk to their partner about something, they pull out the peaceful healing dialogue. This is hard stuff. It really is. I don't expect people just to know how to do it. And a lot of people mess up because they just storm in there. Hey, you forgot to take the garbage out, and now I'm really angry at you and you broke your word and you, okay, which is another thing. Try not to use the you word too much. Don't use it in a finger pointing way, because you're going to push your partner into defense mechanisms. Panel number 5. Okay, so again, once you've healed, there it is. Thank you. Panel number 5 is the wall. Okay. No, now I'm angry at you. Now you're yelling at me. Now you're accusing me. Now you're bossing me around. Now you're resenting me. No, 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 no. Here comes the wall. So get away, back away. You don't want to push the person into defense mechanisms. We really want to keep them interconnected and engaged. And that's why the peaceful healing dialogue. So I highly recommend that you get the book, download the file. You can email me and ask me for it. I think it's even up on my form section on my website, 𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗇𝗏𝗔𝗠𝗔𝗍𝒑𝗏𝐺𝑘𝑢𝑙𝑡𝗀𝐺 You can go there and grab a copy of it. And of course, you could always call in for a free consultation or a full consultation. And then if you are healing from narcissistic abuse, please know that I have a video titled Healing from Narcissistic Abuse that I carefully created so that you can reconfigure your past blueprint and be the cause of healing from this horrendous, demeaning, devaluing experience, and be the cause of better outcomes for your life. So, any other questions in the chat room?
Comments, but I mean, there was one question, if you want to answer it real quick, is maintaining a sense of self and independence when being part of a relationship.
I think it's really important because, again, healthy me plus a healthy me equals a healthy we. And think about reloading oneself. Okay, you can't be a healthy me if you're just we stuck like a little ball of we. Okay, so how do we reload? I like to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym today. I like to go to yoga. I'm back into taekwondo. I try to read a little bit, although a lot of times I'm real tired to read, but there's always audiobooks. I try to reload by being around family and friends. So you've got to nourish yourself. Good food, vitamins, hobbies, health, drink water, don't dehydrate. Okay, so you've got to, you've got to bring it. You know how they say, what are you bringing to the relationship table? So load it up. Be that person that's rich in intelligence, in empathy. That's a big one. People lack empathy. Be rich in communication skills. Be rich in health. And then you're bringing it. So you're not just vampiring each other and sucking the air out of the room by being a we. You actually have me time, and then you can get excited. Oh, where were you? Oh my God, I saw the coolest painting. I decided to go to the museum while you were working, and I just want to share with you what that was like. So, anything that's going to enrich you that you can bring to the relationship. So keep in mind, it's a growing entity. It's not just an all or none thing, and it can't grow if there's no commitment. A leaky vessel is going to leak out if you're having affairs, if you're like giving your partner this vague, well, I love you, but, yeah, maybe, but somewhere down the line, but, and not really showing them that you are as priceless as the most beautiful diamond ring. And by that, I don't mean that you've got to spend inordinate amounts of money that are going to stress you, but it's the symbol of it. If you're making X amount, then buy something tiny, but let it be beautiful. Let it be significant. Let it be meaningful. That's how you build a we, is by committing to that we and honoring it and respecting it. So I will see you next time. Anybody that want to give me feedback? What if I did a dating show here, like a dating to mate show or something like that? Would that be of interest to anybody? Please put put a comment or two in the chat room. And Tony, let me know if anybody would be interested in that. I'd love to do that.
That sounds like a good thing to me.
Okay, so it's a yes from you. Anybody else want to?
We're waiting. We're waiting for a comment. Yeah, we do have one. Said that would be great. So
thank you. Okay. All right. So I will see everybody next week, and thank you so much for hanging in there. And we didn't disconnect. We ended up connecting after all. Good night, everyone.